can learn to guess the size of the interval without thinking, then I can read music instantaneously. So the way we do that is yes. The other thing, just before I go on to this, I'll show you, is it turns out no matter how many sharps there are, no matter how many sharps there are, the last sharp on the right is always the number 7. So if I put a sharp here, the next sharp comes in here, next sharp comes in here, next sharp comes on this line here. If I take the one furthest to the right and say that that's the number 7, that's all I need. As a matter of fact, that's all I need. I don't even need to do the rest of it. Because once I've got that, I know this is 5, 3, 1, there's 1. Above that, this is a 2, that's a 4, 1 below is a 6. And now I've got that whole thing labeled, and I'm ready to read the music. You see this simple process? It's really quite simple. So, turns out, the other accidental that's used for telling us the key signature are these things called flats. And flats also come in a certain order. The first one usually comes in like this. The second one comes in like that. The third one comes in like that. And it turns out the last flat is always the number 4. So, since I know the last flat's always the number 4, can I now label all the spaces using this pattern?
Yes.
Going down, 2. Going down, 7. Going up,
6. 1.
3.
3.
and above that, 5. And 1 below 7.
5.
Now we've got 2 octaves. I have 2 octaves laid out there, which is big enough for any score, for any instrument, for any kind of music. And if this were a conductor score and there were 25 staffs, and they were all in different places, all I'd have to do is figure out where 1 is on each one of those staffs, and I can actually, with my eye, track the whole score. So all you need to do now is learn to see those things, those interval distances, and realize again, if I want to write a song that goes like this, something like that, since this is where 1 is at, you can see that's where 1 is at, right? That bottom line there. Then what I have to do is see the distance from here to that line is a third. If I put a note here, the distance from here to here is a second. If I put a note here, this is a unison, or 1. Put a note here, that distance there is 2. Put a note here, from here to here, distance is a 3. And now I can start seeing those distances, can't I? All right.
Well, how does that make you read the music faster?
You'll see. I'm about to do it to you.
Okay.
For all you adults out there, or right there, I'm about to flash you. So if you don't want to get flashed, I think the camera's blinking for a change of tape. It turns out that you can learn to see these interval distances exactly the same way that a carpenter learns to see an inch. If you work with a ruler all day long measuring things, you get to a point after a while where you can just look at something and say, that post is 8 inches wide. And probably if I took a ruler over there and measured it, I'd probably be accurate within a 1/16 of an inch. It had a knot in it, and they used, from here to here was the sacred cubit. From here to here was the cubit. So they measured cubits. The rocks had to be multiples of that, right? So it turns out your eye can be trained to just see these intervals, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm only going to show you odd intervals right now. Only odd ones. And I want you to guess, based on their size, Don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just look at the size and say, it looks about that big. So the first thing I want you to look at is, you see that right on top of each other like that, where they're cuddled together? That's a third. That's a 3. If there is a space or a line in between, like this, then that is a 5th. See? A 5th. And if there is 2 spaces or 2 lines in the middle, can you see the difference in the sizes? 3, 5, 7. Now that's all I want you to know. Based on seeing how big it is, I want you to just say the number. And what will happen is, as we do this, you'll see that eventually all the chatter and talk in your left brain will just stop. Because as long as your left brain's trying to figure it out, you'll always get the wrong answer. But the minute you look at it and say, oh, that looks like 3 inches, that looks like 5 inches, that looks like 7 inches, you'll get it right almost every time. And I should be able to turn these cards at lightning speed, so we're going to work at it. You ready? Next one coming up is 3. A little bit bigger.
5.
A little bit bigger.
7.
Still big.
7. 3. 5.
5.
3. 5. 3. 5. 7. 3. 3. 7. 5.
5, 3,
3. 5.
5, 7,
5. 7. 5. 7. 7. 3. 3.
3, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 7, 7, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, 3, 3, 7, 5, 3, 3, 5, 5, 7, 5, 7, 3, 3.
Now, just in case you memorized it. Well, some people can memorize up to 10 numbers, it turns out. And when I was looking at this last week on the internet, I posted this drill on the internet, by the way, if you need to do to go home, and you'll be seeing this. I'll be putting this up on Sunday. So if you just go to the website, just go to the 10-minute segment that has this flashcards, you can just sit and watch these flashcards go by, and what you'll be doing is teaching yourself how to read music with your right brain.
What's your website?
It's at YouTube, and we're under Music Theory Workshop.
Okay.
If you type in Music Theory Workshop, up will come the last 11 weeks that we've done this, okay? Now we're going to do some more. You ready? 3. 7.
7, 3, 5, 3, 7,
See you later.
7, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 3,
You know I stand?
5,
You got it? You guys are new and you're not saying anything, but I see a smile every now and then. So, and then when you don't smile, I know you didn't get it. So, I'm getting silent messages here. Okay.
7, 7,
7.
3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 3, 7, 7, 3, 3, 7, 7, 5.
Do I prove my point? Did you notice that you yourself, when you started to think, you got them wrong? And when you stopped thinking and just looked at how big they were and just reacted to the size? And since there's only 3 sizes, it comes in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. They go, oh, that's a small lady, oh, that's a big lady, oh, that's a really big lady, you know. So you got small, medium, large, extra large, and then oh my gosh. So Same thing here. Once you get used to seeing the size and allowing your right brain to guess, then after a while the guess becomes an estimate because you have experience, and then after a while the estimate becomes dead reckoning. And you'll get 100%, no matter how fast I flash these darn things, you'll hear that number go in your mind. Now, the reason we're doing odd numbers is odd numbers look even. And here's the problem with reading by number. Getting the odds and evens straightened out. Okay? If I put odds and evens together and then did this, you wouldn't be able to get it. Because your eyeball has to unlearn something. When it looks even, it's an odd number. And that's unnatural. See, when I see it, and I see go from a line to a line, I see go from a line to a line, a line to a line, or space to a space, line to a line to a line, space to a space, space to a space, space to a space. It looks even to my eye. So I have to train myself to say, that's an odd number. So every time I see something that matches from a line to a line or a space to a space, chances are it's an odd number. It's going to be a 3, a 5, or a 7. Got it? It's just that simple. Now, what happens if it looks odd? What number do you think it'll be? Yeah. Everything in music, because there's 7, has this yin-yang. If I got a yin, around the corner is a yang, watch out for it. If I've got a yang, around the corner is a yin, watch out for it. So, generally, if one thing is true, then the opposite is probably true. So here, you can see that it looks, it's going from a line to a space. But it's so close to each other, the distance from here would be 1, 2, or a second. This is a 2. If, again, it looks like a 5, but it's odd, it must be an even number, so this is a 4. And then if it's really wide, and again, it's going from a space to a line, it looks odd, it must be an even number. And again, we have small, medium, and large. That's all we got. That's all there is. 1 looks like 1. So, out of the 7 notes, there's only 3 even and 3 odd. And that's it. So you get these sizes in your eyeball, you got it made, okay? So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time you already know every note is going to be even. So again, all you have to do is go by size. Ready?
2,
Real big.
6,
Small.
2,
Medium.
4,
2, 4, 4, 2, 6, 6, 4, 6, 2, 4, 4, 6, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 6, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 2, 6, 2, 4, 2, 4,
2, 6,
6, 4, 6, 2, 4, 4, 6.
Got it? Wasn't that hard, was it? Now, I guarantee you that if I put these 2 stacks of cards together, you wouldn't be able to do it. Because you haven't had enough training to overcome the impulse that if it looks even, you want to call it even. See? So you have to overcome that impulse and know that if it looks even, it's an odd number, and if it looks odd, it's an even number. And once you got that straightened out, and this is a case of what I like to say, you have to first recognize the gender. Is it a boy or is it a girl? Is it odd or is it even? And once you got that straightened out, there's absolutely no problem with guessing the size. Now, just to prove my point, on this side of the board here, to the left, sinister, are all the odd numbers. To the right will be all the even numbers. Okay, what's that size?
6,
6. And the next one?
4,
4. Now, what about on the other side?
3,
Three.
Okay, so let me,
3,
4,
4,
3,
4,
4,
2,
2,
5,
5, 3,
7,
6, 5,
over here.
4, 2, 6, 4, 6,
6, too big. See, it looks odd, you want to...
2,
2,
3, 5, 2, 2, 5, 3, 6, 6.
You see, you have no problem, as long as the two stacks, odd and evens, and you know where they are. And by the way, I could reverse these. You could put the odds on this side and the evens on that. Wouldn't matter to you. And you could sit there and just go odd, 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 even, odd, even, odd, even, odd, 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 even, odd, 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 even. You can do that all day long, which is good practice. And your eyeball will catch it without any thinking. And you'll notice that when you don't think, you get it, right? And that's the whole point here. That's why this approach is completely different than the ABC approach that everyone else is using. And it's easier to do and more organic. Now, let's put it in principle. First of all, any song, no matter what the song is, can be written out as a number code. When I sit around at the piano and I want to figure out something, I know that most times that a song, when it's going to start, 1, volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. I know that a song will start on one of three possible places. The song will either start on the number 1, started on the 1, or it starts on a 3. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Or it starts on a 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 4, 5. And if I want to guess the song, I would start on one of those 3 spots and just piddle it out. So let's say I want to play, and by the way, the song I'm going to give you is an exception. It turns out if you do good jazz songs like Joe Bean, Girl from Ipanema, actually starts on the number 2 and ends on the number 7. Very unusual. Doesn't happen in music often. So there are exceptions. But 99% of the time, a song will start on 1, 3, or 5. So someone think of a simple song. Just give me the name of the
sing
song.
your song.
row your boat.
Row your boat, okay? If I try it on 1, works there. If I try it on 3, doesn't work there. Try it on 5. Goes sour after that part. But if I go on 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can figure it out. Now if I write it down on a piece of paper, this, do me a favor and pass those out. What I do when I'm trying to write a song is I hear the melody in my head, and I sit down and I know it's going to start on 1, 3, or 5, so I try that. Now this song happens to start on 6 because it's a jazz song. And we'll find out what the song is in a little bit. But, you see, I just wrote it out as a set of number codes, right? And then if I follow that number code, I could just write out a song that's just nothing but a big, see like this, big batch of numbers. Right? And this allows me to write out the melody and then take it home to work on it. Okay? The next thing I have to do is figure out the rhythm to these. I have to figure out the rhythm to that. Well, we did all that code word rhythm stuff before And I showed you how to hear rhythms and write them down, so you older people already know how to do that. You new people, I can't take the time to explain it. But trust me, there's a way of doing this where you can hear this stuff by ear. And then what you can do is sit down and try to figure out the rhythm. Now once you figure out the rhythm, all you do is notate it as I did. I put flags on the numbers. First I got the numbers, then I put little flags on the numbers to give me the rhythm. Now the question is, what do you think the song is? See, it starts on 6, right? So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Start here on 6. And what do I do?
Funny Valentine.
Yes.
You are right.
1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. 4 sharp, 4, 3, 2, 5, 1, 1, 7, 1, 1, 7, 1, 1, 7, 1, 1, 7, 7, that's my favorite Valentine?
Funny Valentine.
My funny Valentine.
My favorite funny
I
Valentine.
know, she is my favorite funny Valentine. Now, this is written in the key of E flat. Again, if we look at the last flat, it's the number 4. If we count from the number 4, please. Cooperation. Modern people make me go around. Yeah, you might want to. Here's a darker one with the numbers already done, so you can show it to the camera. All right, so now let's look at that. The bottom line there is the number 1 in the key of E flat, which, by the way, we have up here on the board. Right? It's got 3 flats. The third flat is the number 4. If I go 4, 3, 2, 1, the bottom line is the number 1. So, let me make it a little bit prettier. Yeah. 2 minutes. So there was this flat here, that flat on that space, and then the next one was on this space. That's the number 4. So this is 1. 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6. Below 1 would be a 6. 2 below would be a 4. So there's 2.5 octaves, which is the bandwidth we need to write out anything. And you can see Funny Valentine starts on that first note below, called the ledger line, with the number 6. Now again, if I went and put a note on that line, on that number 1 line there, throughout this whole piece, then I'd have the same thing as the flashcards, wouldn't I? So if I'm seeing a note here, which is my reference, and the first note starting here, I can see that that is a third, a distance of a third. And starting on the note 6 and going to the note 1. So I have all the information I need to know about that right there. If there's a note here, if I take that note and think of this as being a note under it, I can see that distance is a fourth. Can you see that? And if I have a note way up here, and I think of that line, having a note, I can see here that distance is a 7. And now all I need to do in order to number the music is recognize the distances. And in my own brain, I have to hallucinate a dot appearing on that one line all the way along there to help me. Now, after a while, you don't need the dot. I just see the line, and I think of the line as my reference point, and I'm measuring every distance to that line. So, look through the P's here quickly. 6, 7, 1. Does that make sense to you? And then it goes 7, 1, 7. Then it goes back to 6. 6, 7, 1, 7, 1, 7. 6, 7, 1. Now it jumps a fifth. 1, 5. Comes down a note. 4. Comes down a note. 3. Comes down a note. 2. And you can see that 2 is just above the line. So it's a 2. Then 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 2. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. 1, 2, 3, up a fifth to 7, 6, 5. Now you see that 4 has a little symbol on it. That little symbol is called a neutral. And whenever you have flats in a key signature, the neutral sign is getting rid of the flat. So it acts like a sharp. And that's one reason it looks like a sharp. It almost looks like a sharp. So whenever I have a neutral appear in the music, it's trying to get rid of one of these flats, which makes that whole line move up a half a step. So what happened is, it looks like the number it is, in this case the number 4, but the neutral sign adds a sharp to it. So we would call that 4 sharp. And that would be between the number 5 and 4, there's a 5 flat or a 4 sharp. There's a little black note in between there. So that would be 4 sharp. And then it says 4 and it's got a flat in front of it. Now the reason they put that flat there is to restore the flat that they had just removed in the previous measure with the neutral sign. And that is not necessary. There's a rule in music that when we go past the bar line, everything resets. So when they put that in there, that 4 flat in there, they're just doing it to remind you that you should have done that. Therefore confusing you and making you think that you're looking at a 4 flat when there is no such note. There's no such note as 4 flat.
So what a sharp key and a neutral is a sharp key. What you're not.
Okay, then what happens is the neutral sign becomes a flat. The neutral sign is the only symbol which is androgynous. It's a hermaphrodite. And it's interesting that they chose that particular symbol. The flats actually came from a B. When they were writing in the old days, and these people carved out letters, they took a small b that was italicized, and that became the flat. B flat. So they used the letter B. Then later they used the sharp symbol, or the pound symbol, to create the sharp. We know it as tic-tac-toe. Right, tic-tac-toe. But then what happened is, if they wanted to get rid of one of these and make it go sharp, or they wanted to get rid of one of these and make it go flat, they came up with this symbol, the neutral. And I don't know if you can notice it, but if I cover this part, it looks like a flat, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And if I let the lines fall through, it looks like a sharp. So what happens is, if I have a key signature that has sharps in it, every time I see a neutral, it acts like a flat. And if I have a key signature that has flats in it, when I see a neutral, it acts like a sharp. It does the exact opposite of the key signature. Wow. And that's all. There's nothing else to it. The neutral sign is the one thing that will come up your backside more often than anything else, and quite often people will put them in indiscriminately. They won't follow the rules. They'll put them in trying to remind you of something that you don't need to be reminded of. It's like having a nagging person around all the time, nagging you so much to listen to them that you don't listen to anything. And so what happens is people use neutrals so indiscriminately and try to reset things that you know have gotten reset, that now, every time I look at a neutral, I have to ask myself, is it real or is it a liar? Is it true or is it Memorex?
Well, what's the double sharp symbol?
The double sharp symbol is when we want to have two sharps on something, we use an X. And the original version was an X with 4 dots, double sharp. And for double flats, they still to this day use 2 flats on the thing.
Where'd that symbol come from?
What?
That double
The sharp symbol?
Yeah.
You know, I looked it up on Wikipedia and nobody seems to know. It appeared around the 11th century. It appeared somewhere around the 11th century. Here's what I think. You take a Model T Ford, you bring it forward in today, and you look at a brand new car, and you try to take all the plumbing from the new car and stick it on the old Ford. What you're going to wind up with is a nightmare of plumbing. Instead of redesigning the car entirely, if you keep trying to modify it and readapt it so we can make it modern, you're going to wind up with a nightmare of plumbing. That is the story of music history. People invented something, and it worked nicely for a while, and then 200 years later, it didn't work anymore, so someone came up with an exception to the rule. Then the exception to the rule became the rule, and then that became the new tradition, then that was passed on, and then 250 years later, people had problems doing something new, so they invented something else, and on and on and on. And that's what happened. Putting 2 sharps on the line, I guess, was too hard for people to see. So they invented a whole thing. Whereas flat, they didn't have a problem with that. So I'm not exactly sure why, but I do know that it was probably a committee decided on it, it became a tradition, it was passed on mindlessly thereafter, and the reason for doing it has been lost. So that doesn't mean that we have to keep those traditions, right? Anyway, time to go. I'm giving you homework, and if you come back in 3 weeks...
3 weeks?
Yeah, it'll be 3 weeks.
First week of August, first Wednesday.
Of August.
These are, hidden in there are melodies, and these are all melodies you know. They've all been written in different keys. And if you use this decoding that I told you about, the last flat to the right is always the number 4. The last sharp to the right is always, the number 7. The first 2 I've already shown you. Everybody's got one? I've already shown you in the first 2 where the number 1 would land. The first one is E flat. The last flat is the number 4. If you count down, the bottom line happens to be where 1 is. The second staff down, you'll notice there's 4 sharps. Well, it just so happens that the 4th sharp is the number 7, and if you count down, the number 1 becomes the bottom line also. So, although one would be E flat and the other is E, it turns out they both look exactly the same when you're doing it by number. We don't have to know it's E flat, we don't have to know it's E. We only have to know that that bottom line is 1. So this is the case where 2 different time signatures or key signatures share the same line. Share the same line. They would be read. And you'll find that when you get into reading by number, this out of the 12 keys, there's 2 keys that point to the same line, or 2 keys that point to the same space. So there's really only 6 things to learn. You only have to learn to read in 6 keys by number. And then what happens is just reverse it. Another thing is if I turn the paper over, upside down, any numbers that we learned for the bottom 3 lines would be exactly the same for the top 3 lines if they were turned over. They would look the same. In other words, if I take this interval, which is a third, and I turn it over, still a third, isn't it? If I take my 6th and I turn it over, still a 6th. It's just that here, top line, second to the bottom space, second to the bottom top space, bottom line. So if I learn to read this line, that space, that line, that space, and that line, I will have learned to read in every key. Because if I turn it over, same. Okay, let's back up. Now, on the first Wednesday of next month is when we meet again.